St. Lucia, in keeping with the Eastern Caribbean's goal to significantly reduce the sub-region's food import bill, intends to reduce the value of foods imported to $280.44 million EC dollars. The food import bill approaches a record high as 2025, the deadline for this goal, approaches its end. On Tuesday, the 28th of October, the Minister for Agriculture, Honorable Alfred Prosper, listed the initiatives that have been put in place to promote food security in the hopes of reducing food imports.
Franchise c'est pour mettre pays nous en dans direction côté nous kay assurer nous assez manger pour bailler moun en Sainte-Lucie et puis nous kay travail pour continuer mener bill manger nous kan trouver baba so nous kay ça dépend en l'air c'est fama c'est différents moun qui en secteur agricole là pour nous faire bailler primaire.
In early September, two well-respected economists, Dr. Adrian Auger and Richard Peterkin, opined on this goal. Both of them identified a need to give greater consideration to the volume of tourist arrivals in St. Lucia and to relate their food consumption to food imports. That way, there is a distinction made between food imports intended for the consumption of locals and imports intended for tourist consumption. When asked whether St. Lucian's consumption of locally produced foods would do much for a country that imports food for a population of 180,000, as well as tourist arrivals of over 1 million each year, Prosper had this to say.
Well, one, we must have the data. And the data is what is supposed to give us that information to make sound decisions. We continue to import watermelons, we continue to import cabbage, and a number of fruits or commodities that we can grow. But the ministry has a serious problem in terms of collecting the data from the field.
The Agriculture Minister expressed his hope that St. Lucian agricultural producers will be able to supply hotels to a greater extent, but identified a need for farmers to diversify their produce for that to become a possibility.
I really wish our hotels would be able to buy all the food they need from our local farmers, but it's just not possible because some of our farmers do not grow most of the commodities that they import.
Whilst the minister's responses were quite careful, what he fairly contends is that the quality of the ministry's interventions can only be as high as the quality of the data that it has to work with. According to a presentation made by Javan Lewis from the St. Lucia Tourism Authority to the Tourism Advisory Committee meeting last week, food and beverage was the highest category of non-accommodation spending, that is, money spent outside of resorts, for the average tourist visiting St. Lucia during the period April to June 2025. This category took up 76% of the $154.91 on average that tourists spent outside of their hotels in Q2 of 2025. This demonstrates to some slight degree just how much of St. Lucia's imports ultimately get exported. For Choice News Now, I am Sienna Dalso.